Heading into the T20 World Cup this year, there were plenty of question marks around the Indian squad as well as what approach exactly would be taken. Previously, we've heard talk about India trying to adopt an aggressive approach, but in 2022, that came crashing down, and it came crashing down hard once the crunch situations really came to the fore. Come 2024, not a lot admittedly has changed, at least in terms of personnel, but what that's done is sow some seeds of doubt as to what exactly the outcome or the result could be going into this particular edition of the T20 World Cup. A lot of people have raised valid concerns, and one person who is once again added to that chorus of doubt surrounding the Indian cricket team is former India cricketer and current commentator Akash Chopra. Akash Chopra has raised a multitude of issues, and we'll go over some of the things he's raised and then of course discuss them as we usually do. Starting off with some rather big questions from him. First, he asks, are India underprepared for yet another T20 World Cup? Aren't we still figuring out our batting lineup? Who's the opener and the finisher? Now, all of these questions come in the aftermath of the warm-up game against Bangladesh. Now, of course, you can make an argument, and it's a valid one, to perhaps not read too much into what happens in a warm-up game, but given it's the only warm-up game that India will be playing, you do know that if players are playing in a certain position, it is to try them out, keeping in mind the rest of the tournament. So, obviously, after that game, there's been plenty of talk that potentially you could see Kohli open alongside Rohit, which would mean potentially sacrificing Yashasvi Jaiswal and pushing someone like a Rishabh Pant up the order to ensure that you get some left-handed players into the top order. Now, again, you can agree or disagree with it, but it does feed into the point. Who's going to be playing in what role? And he continues expanding on it further. He said that since the last T20 World Cup, we've been playing with almost the same 11 and same batting order. The roles have changed, but none were informed, and it's not ideal. Now, I will correct Akash here slightly. Yes, from World Cup to World Cup, the 11 that you've had hasn't really changed. But if you go with the bilaterals that took place in the aftermath of 2022 and then through 2023, you realize that a lot did change. There was plenty of new players brought in. You were trying out all of that until you decided to rip all of that up and go back to the tried and tested. And that, interestingly, is what forms the basis of another thing he says, in that you have more or less the same players, and have they in fact made that more of a problem? He says that it is because none of the senior players played since the last World Cup. They never played T20s, that is. I strongly feel we lack proper preparation, and we are still trying to address it. Now, how good or bad the preparation is something that more often than not, only hindsight will tell you, because you'll see that certain teams take a more relaxed approach when it comes to preparing for tournaments. Some prepare a more hard, grind-focused one. India, of course, didn't have the option of the latter because most of their players would have been busy with IPL commitments or breaks after the IPL was done, and then they only collected for a few days in New York, getting accustomed or acclimatized to what have been newer conditions, both in terms of weather and of course in terms of the conditions, playing conditions that you had on offer. So it's hard not to look at some of the points being raised here and say, well, he may actually be making something of a point here. He may have a point. He may actually be onto something here. Of course, you can only say so with certainty with the benefit of hindsight, but it is fair to say that you're going to be seeing a makeshift 11 in terms of players playing certain roles which they may not be familiar with. But is that going to be effective? Is that going to be a deterrent? History suggests that that can be a bit of a gamble, and I certainly am not a fan of it. But what are your thoughts on the entire matter? You can let us know that in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, X and Facebook. Don't forget to download the Sports the Cap, and if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done as well. For now, from my side though, it is goodbye.